Welcome back to Daring and Doing. I'm Will Hester, and I'm joined by the brilliant, the best, the bold, the big, Ben Bowman. How you doing, mate?
Mate, I'm very good, actually. Yesterday, funny enough, made things a lot better, didn't it?
Oh, mate, it made me forget about things, genuinely.
Did we play on the weekend?
I don't know.
I can't remember. I can't even remember who we played.
I've got this... I've got this song in my head as well. I think it goes something like, oh,
whoa.
It's a banger, mate. On repeat.
It actually is. It is, mate.
How you feeling about the weekend then?
I feel great. I feel brilliant. Spurs women through to the FA Cup final. Come on.
Yeah, quality.
Do a little trip to Wembley. And did Arsenal play yesterday?
Yeah, I think I saw something like maybe Arteta crying or something like that at a press conference.
Did I see Saka limping? Did I see him limping at the end? Or
I mean, I'm guessing he normally does it on a bad day, so
yeah.
I'm pretty sure he
might
have done it.
And I think that we probably saw more of that last 10 minutes than most of the Arsenal fans in the stadium, didn't we? I think, watching on TV.
How shit is that fan base, first of all?
Unbelievable.
Oh my God, they're the cringiest, shittest, most... Like, I actually strongly believe the majority of Arsenal fans it's their personality trait. They do it for a personality trait. Like, they'll be like, yeah, I support Arsenal, and they'll know fuck all about it, and they'll pretend there's no, like, loads about it. And
the Sky Sports Gooners, that's what they are.
Yeah, literally. It's fucking so cringy. And of course, there was an empty stadium as soon as that second one went in. They're in a title race. I know you tweeted about it. They're in a title race. They just fucking abandoned. Like, I know you've gone 2-0 down, but show some support to your team that's obviously crumbling. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you know what? To be fair, I did see some Arsenal. There were the majority of the narrative from Arsenal fans on Twitter were like, "Yeah, we're going to get pelters for this," and like rightly so, which was encouraging. At least they have some sort of ounce of self-awareness. But it's embarrassing. Like I was praying for the drone shot. I was like, I needed the drone shot. Do you remember Brighton at home last year where they went 3-0 down? And it was just like they immediately panned to like all of the fans pouring out the ground. It was just like
so good.
Oh, that's when you know you've been. That's when you know. But it's like the thing is, you'd imagine that City will probably go on and win the league now, but it ain't over. They're 2 points behind them, and they go 1-0 down. But it was like it was the same in the Champions League in the week. They can't get their heads around it. Like it was 2-2 with 5 minutes to go, and they're all leaving. Yeah. Me and my stepdad always say it's like we can see your cannon. We can as soon as you can start to see the cannon on that lower tier stand, like the TV faces, like yesterday where all the empty seats were. That's when you know they're not winning. And it's like they give it all the big one about North London forever, which don't even get me fucking started on that.
So fucking cringe.
Like, there's a line in it. I was doing some research around the lyrics for this podcast. And one of the words is one of the lyrics is "My heart will leave you never." Left yesterday, didn't it? Did it leave yesterday?
Until
10 minutes from the end. Yeah. Did it leave when Watkins put the ball in the net?
Make that hit like crack as well.
Unbelievable. Now, did you see the away end? I know we're not supposed to like cheer on Villa, but who gives a fuck?
Nah, exactly.
Don't care. That made everything so much better. That away end was quality. Like me and my mate, we went up to Newcastle at the weekend, which we'll have to talk about a little bit. We were saying about like who do you think are the best away fans that you've seen come to Spurs like recently? And to be fair, Newcastle always travel well. Man United always travel well, mostly because they ain't got to travel that far. But they actually do have a very good core of away support. United. But Villa's is always quality. Villa are class. Like that away end was unparalleled. Elation, limbs, which is what football is all about. And I'd be in there with them. We were talking about it on the last podcast. I'd be, doing the Poznan with the City fans when they come to our ground and win the title. It's just you just love to see football fans happy, don't you? Unless it's the Gooners.
The Gooners,
But yeah, it was a good Sunday.
It's just not a very good Saturday, I don't think.
No.
Yeah, we can put that behind us, but at least we ended on a couple of positives, a couple of highs. Arsenal are actually looking like bottlers again, though. How mad is that? They bottled the top four, bottled the league last year, and then done it again this year. Where it looks like it. I don't want to speak too soon. Touch wood.
Yeah,
but fuck me, their arrogance is like they've won it all already. Arteta has the actual arrogance of prime Mourinho, and the football coaching ability of. To be fair, I don't know who to compare him with because he He is a decent manager.
He's a good
But
manager.
he's not elite like he sort of portrays himself as. And actually,
did you see what he was saying about like, oh, any other league and like we're 5 or 6 points clear at the top or whatever? And it was like, hold on a minute, like Bayer Leverkusen have gone the whole season unbeaten, and Inter Milan are like 12 points clear in the Serie A. It was
he's
just
a
like,
prick, mate.
The lack of he's an absolute supreme bellend. And then to come out and snap like he did after the game. To be fair, it was a stupid question, but he was like, "Why did you choose to start Trossard over Martinelli?" It was because I'm the manager and I picked the team. He's like,
actually, I saw that you did the J from the J.
That is my favourite gif. Literally, anytime you get a bit of advice, anytime you get a nibble like in a group chat or like a nibble on Twitter or like someone bites on something, the J from the In-Betweeners gif is the best thing ever. Just like
good.
chuck that straight in the group chat, and you're guaranteed to get a little bit of a, when someone's gone already, it's like they're ready. It's like they're foaming at the mouth to go again.
It's a proper rattler, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a proper rattler.
I actually see a lot of comparisons between the sort of 2017, 18, 19 Spurs team and this Arsenal team. Like, if Arsenal don't win anything, I mean, the Community Shield, fuck off. Yeah. And the FA Cup was a write-off anyways. Like, I know I've just named like 2 trophies, but they don't matter. That FA Cup was that's an anomaly. Like that, that was a COVID season. In his first season, he parked the bus the whole way. That was pure luck. But I see a lot of comparisons between that Spurs team and this Arsenal team. Like, and I'm really hoping that they'll fall into like disarray, just like sort of that Spurs team did under Pochettino. And actually, think about how by 2019, the Spurs players had sort of stopped playing for Poch. He was like their father figure. Yeah. Think about how they're going to feel when Arteta's losing his shit in the dressing room, being a whiny little prick, and they're thinking, well, hang on, we haven't won anything. We always bottle everything. They're going to stop playing for him soon, I think, and I can't wait for the day where they start properly crumbling. They are crumbling. They may add more firepower to the team, but they're still serial losers, and they I feel like they will continue to be. Like, generally,
I love that.
I don't care. Like, Arteta will be managing PSG in the next 5 years. And
with his stupid fucking light bulb analogy, guys, fucking guys, watch this, guys. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, guys. You fucking little Lego-headed mug. He is a gimp. He is just like,
he is a gimp,
little Lego-headed twat. But it wasn't the only positive from yesterday. Spurs women got to the FA Cup final. Fucking, that is an amazing achievement, by the way. Yeah, an incredible achievement.
Yeah, how was that? Because you were at the game, weren't you?
It was brilliant. It was, you know what? It was a really good atmosphere. Like, I was I went with my mum actually, and she's a Spurs fan anyway. Like, she's always kind of taken an interest. But me and her have gone to quite a lot of Spurs women's games over the last few years, and it's just like, it's nice to spend that time together. But it's also like, when you go to the ground, it's like, because obviously, for anyone that doesn't know, Spurs women play their home games at Leyton Orient. Used to play at Cheshunt, which is near where I'm from. And then before that, they used to play at this, weirdly enough, there was this pub that me and my mate George, he used to go there quite a lot with his dad and his dad's mates who we went to Spurs with. It's called the Gas Club. I can't remember where it is. And I used to go with him sometimes. And it was like it wasn't even a pub. It was like a sort of like a football club. And people used to go there to have a drink before Tottenham. And there was like loads of football pitches and that. And we used to kick the football around out there. And that's where Spurs women used to play. They used to play in a fucking, like a pub, basically.
Yeah.
And then they moved to Cheshunt Football Club. And then they moved to, where did they go to after that? Was it Barnet, maybe? I think it was Barnet, and then to Orient. And now playing an FA Cup semi-final at the stadium. It was amazing. And it was a really good turnout. Like, it wasn't sold out, but if you were watching the game on TV, like you did, like, you wouldn't have been able to tell because there were the cameras at Spurs. And I know it's like, it's not manipulation, but it's like, you wouldn't know that it wasn't full, like, because you can't see the upper tiers at Spurs anyway, which were all empty. But they did it the best way. That it meant that those parts of the ground were actually full and it had an atmosphere. I went to the North London derby when Spurs beat Arsenal for the first ever time early this season, and the atmosphere was all right. But it was just because obviously we're talking about Arsenal. Like, I don't know whether you have it, but a lot of families are like Spurs and Arsenal, aren't they? Like,
a lot
of people have Arsenal in there. So it's like, and because it's the way that women's football is different to the men. It's like you can bring it's more of a family feel, and there'll be Spurs fans and Arsenal fans that will sit together and stuff. And there was a lot of that at the game, which kind of nullified the atmosphere a little bit. Even though, credit to Arsenal, they sold out the entire away end that you'd sell for a Premier League game, which was amazing. And it's so good to see how far women's football has come. But to see Spurs do that yesterday, like I said, they've come such a long way in a short space of time. And to be there was it was special, man. It was really, really good. And be at Wembley on the 12th of May against Man United.
Yeah, unreal.
Left it late, as we did. 2 minutes to go in extra time. Penalties were looming. But yeah, it was a brilliant day, a brilliant atmosphere. And it was just, it was nice. It was really nice, man. It was it was very, very good. A good game, good performance, gritty. Like, we wasted some chances, but we got there in the end against a Leicester team that, again, like, defended really, really well. But it was quality, and fucking go. If anyone hasn't been to a Spurs women's game before, you're never going to get a better opportunity than going to see them in an FA Cup final at Wembley. So go and, when the tickets go on sale, go and do it. And I fucking see you there.
Mate, we were peppering them in the last 10 minutes. I was watching on TV, and the atmosphere did seem really good. It's such it's a great thing to see. Yeah, when that Naz goal went in for the equaliser, oh my God, like, it was limbs. So it was so good to see. And that was the real quiz.
Exactly.
David Brent.
Exactly. That's the real quiz.
That's the real quiz. That was the real Spurs result this weekend. Forget about Saturday. Sunday was unreal. But I feel like it is time to actually fuck the Newcastle game off. We don't have to talk about it. How many duck-sized Postecoglou's could you fight at the same time, Ben?
After Saturday, probably more than I. He's got go, hasn't he?
I think so, mate.
Too naive.
Do you know what, mate? Do you know
too
what?
Open tactics.
6-1 to 4-0. Do you know what I call that?
Progress.
Fucking progression, mate.
Exactly.
In 4 years, we'll be winning 2-0.
Yeah. Just put the thing of him, just mate. 6-1 to 4-0 in a year, mate.
Mate, it's good progression, if you ask me.
How many duck-sized Postecoglou's could you fight at the same time?
Yeah.
Fucking 200.
And they fight dirty. 200? Actually, I forget you were like 6'7".
Exactly, man. I'm a big man.
Yeah.
Get me and John Bass on there with fucking...
Oh, mate.
We'll smash them all up.
It'd be like an annihilation.
It'd be a bloodbath. That's almost not unfair on the Ducks.
Yeah, it actually would be. No, I mean, I was thinking, me personally, 2.
Yeah.
I reckon they fight. I mean, I'm like 5'8". I reckon that, and that's on a good day. I reckon. Yeah. I reckon these.
That's in your Tinder bio. Well, you have got a girlfriend. But...
Yeah, that was on my Tinder bio.
Yeah.
I've been on TikTok shop buying those little like shoe.
Oh, the platform.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The insoles. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm 5'9", so.
Mate, I'm actually 6'4". I've got a load of them. You can borrow them if you like.
You're actually like 5'9".
Yeah. It's all a lie.
Deceptive. But I actually really think like 2 duck-sized Postecoglou's would be enough to take me down, because I feel like I reckon he'd fight dirty, he'd bite, he'd punch the back of your knees, and he'd try and pin you down and then get on top of you. And I don't think I'd be able to handle that. But with you, I mean, I reckon you could just boot him away.
Yeah. Fuck off. Yeah. I'd do what Pedro Porro did and just kick him one really high up into the air right towards your own fucking goal. Idiot.
Or do a Timo Werner, put it into Rose Z, mate.
Yeah. Oh, mate.
All right. Well, we've delayed it.
Deflected for long enough.
Yeah, exactly. We got to talk about the shit show at St James's Park. I know we said it wasn't as bad as last year, but it was pretty fucking bad. It was pretty bad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What went wrong for Spurs, and how did Newcastle do us again?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd just like to retract the podcast title from the last episode of How We'll Beat Newcastle. We thought that was so clever. We were sitting there on, what was it, Thursday, whenever we recorded, and being like, we've come up with a really good title for this. And it was like, we got there eventually. It was like, and then we go get beat 4-0.
How we got penetrated.
Yeah, literally, how we got penetrated. How we got our asses handed to us.
Yeah, literally.
By fucking Ant and Dec. It was, it was a bad day. It was a bad day. what went wrong for Spurs. Pretty much everything, but credit to Newcastle first and foremost, because I think that was probably the best a team has played against us this season. Genuinely, like I know they've got players out, and yes, we've had performances. You could maybe argue Fulham played really well against us, which they did, but this Newcastle team nullified Tottenham like no other team has. Even against Fulham, like we were bad, but we still had chances in that game. We had nothing. We did not lay a glove on Newcastle at all. Yeah, we maybe had the penalty shout that could have made it 2-1, which was definitely a penalty, by the way. Just get that out of the way on Bentancur. Again, from St James's Park, because they're the only fucking club in the country that are allowed to just stick all the away fans right out of sight. You know, I couldn't see it. I had to get my binoculars out. I didn't even know it was Bentancur. It could have been Vicario for all I knew, running for on goal and getting kicked in the head by Dan Burn. Oh, but yeah. But Newcastle were excellent. Their pressing was incredible. I felt so sorry for Vicario in that game, because it was like he had no option. He just kept pumping it long, and it felt aimless. But it was like they cut off every single kind of supply. We could not play out from the back at all. They were on us. They set up so well. It was a brilliant performance from them, and they had the killers to kill us off in those moments when they overturned us and won the ball back. We didn't help ourselves. You know, Van der Ven put his ice skates on instead of his football boots. But again, like I feel sorry for Van der Ven, because the one bad game he's had this season, he's had an absolute stinker.
Yeah, it was one bad thing after another.
Yeah, I felt for it. I did feel for him, because it was the same thing in 2 minutes. It was like, what are we? You know, when it's just like someone tweeted, it was like in Space Jam, where like they just all of a sudden like lose all their powers. That's exactly what happened to Van der Ven. But what I would say with Van der Ven is that he slipped in those moments, but he was covering up for people's mistakes. That's what it was.
Yeah,
he was the last ditch. He was the last ditch defender in that. He was the last ditch defender in that moment, and there wasn't much more he could have done. Obviously, you don't want him to slip over, but yeah, it was that was unfortunate for him, but it was not a good day. Some really poor performances from Spurs, and yeah, I don't know. Like maybe I think that was one of the most concerned I've come away from a game this season. We've had a few of them like towards over the last few months or so, but I think I was fairly concerned. But I think when the dust settles a little bit, it's easy to kind of be reactionary in that moment. And I'm not saying Ange is blameless at all. And you know, are people getting a bit not carried away, but like are people, you know, avoiding giving him any criticism and all this kind of stuff? There's a small portion of people with doing that, but yes, he should have made subs maybe earlier. I don't understand why he didn't make those subs at half time that he then made 5 minutes into the second half when we were 3-0 down. It's clear we needed some ball retention, and Kulusevski and Højbjerg would have brought that. Højbjerg did that, but then he kept giving the ball away. Like Højbjerg made us better, but he also made us worse with some of his passing. Kulusevski came on. I thought Kulusevski did really well when he came on. Like I know you don't want to say that after a 4-0 defeat, but I think that shows going into the next few games. I think he's probably got to come back in. I felt sorry for Brennan Johnson, actually, because he worked his arse off, especially when he went up front in the second half. Tried. It just couldn't. It wasn't happening for him. But there were some really, really poor performances out there. And Ange got outclassed. He got massively outclassed by Eddie Howe. But I think it's, you know, I think people are obsessed with this thing with Ange, because I just feel like he doesn't really get a fair crack of the whip in terms of the reporting around these things. Not reporting, but like the narrative around Ange. I tweeted about this earlier. It's like, I don't know, someone tweeted basically saying that Aston Villa have conceded the same amount of goals as Spurs this season, but the narrative around Ange and Emery is completely different. And don't get me wrong, no one's saying for a second that the media are laying into Ange at any given opportunity, but it feels like off the back of a defeat, there is almost this like, well, these tactics worked in Scotland, but are they going to stack up in the Premier League? Yeah. There was an amazing clip from The Athletic's Spurs podcast that resurfaced earlier that Charlie Eccleshare, who is an Arsenal fan, by the way, saying this.
That shook me when I found that out. Because he's actually excellent on that pod.
He's amazing. He's absolutely brilliant. And it's great because, of course, he is an Arsenal fan, but he's a neutral and he kind of gives you that perspective that's just like, speaks a lot more sense than some of our fans. Do you know what I mean? It's
less emotionally charged. Yeah,
exactly. And he was spot on. Like, it was funny because the analogy that he sort of used was, and I don't know how much cricket you watch, Will, but I play cricket and I'm a big cricket fan. And the whole thing around Bazball this summer. So Brendan McCullum came in as the England coach, the Test side. We were absolutely shocking, and he completely turned everything around by basically encouraging them to play really attacking and just taking all the pressure off. And people were comparing that to kind of like, or not comparing that, but comparing the fallout from that to what's happening with Ange. And it's like, he said that there will be a game that Spurs lose at one point in the season against a team that they either shouldn't lose to, or they get beat heavily by maybe a team around them. And all of a sudden the discussion becomes like, well, it was all well and good against Partick Thistle, but can he do it in the Premier League? Does he need to adapt? And it's just incredibly boring.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, I don't know, he gets questions thrown his way that I just feel like are quite unfair. And not saying that you can't throw any questions at him. He's not bulletproof. He has shown flaws in his management style and maybe his ability to spot things in certain games and shore us up a little bit. I think we definitely saw that at the weekend. But I think he's still a victim of the same lazy kind of painful narrative around him that he's naive and unwilling to adapt. And I think what stuck out to me on Saturday was how right we've got to get our recruitment in the summer. And I know we've spoken a lot about transfers over the course of the time we've started this podcast, and it feels like every week we get asked about, would you sign this player? Would you sign this player? Would you sign this player? I don't think it's about individual players. I think it's about that kind of profile that you can rely on physically in these kind of games to look after the ball. You look at Arsenal and Man City, what they're kind of built, big men, big, strong players. And unfortunately, we're a little bit powder puff at the moment in those certain moments and a little bit weak. And I think the evolution of this team maybe needs to go in such a way that prevents us from being so open defensively, not as a result of the tactics, but as a result of the personnel. Like, it's such a high risk, high reward system that Ange deploys at Spurs. But you've got to mitigate the risks. You've got to stay strong in your principles and stay true to the way you want to play and mitigate the risks through the personnel on the pitch that allows you more control in these games. And having these big physical players, maybe someone like an Onana, maybe someone like an Ivan Toney up front, because I'm always very careful in some of the stuff that I say about Sonny, not for any reason other than the fact that, like, I think he gets way too much shit from our fan base. But again, that's not that he should be exempt from criticism. 2 goals came as a result of Sonny's inability to hold the ball up, and it cost us. And then you're left so open. But again, that was down to Newcastle's tactics. They pressed incredibly well. They nullified all of the passing lanes for Spurs, covered all of the channels on the pitch, but left Isak up front on his own. And as soon as that ball goes over the top, it's game over because he's an incredible striker who shows so much composure and so quick, so physical. So I think it's about, in terms of the evolution of what Spurs are trying to do, I think it's about mitigating the risks of how we play with stronger players. I think I think that's kind of how I saw it. But it was a bad day. It was a bad day, and it's always going to be worse when you get beat by a team that are in and around you and you've got the better of already this season, and you feel like you've got away from 13 points clear of Newcastle going into this game. And we were talking on here about kind of putting them back in their box a little bit, and we got rightly kind of humbled, really. But I don't think it was anything to do with the team going into it with some sort of arrogance. I just didn't think we played anywhere near well enough. But hats off to Newcastle. They fully deserved it. I think that was the best performance of any team I've seen against Spurs.
Yeah, you're right. They completely and utterly nullified us in every area of the pitch. And Isak is actually Van der Ven's like kryptonite, if you're thinking about the type of player that would bring down a player as good as Van der Ven, because he can match him for pace. And Isak's deceptiveness and his agility he's so agile. He's got such quick, silky feet. And Van der Ven has got all the pace in the world. He's not like the most agile. Like, he's quick to turn, but when you're up against a player of Isak's agility and physicality and pace, and it almost is like everything that Van der Ven wouldn't want to come up against. But yeah, like you said, I think he was a little bit unlucky. I know he made mistakes, but he was trying to recover from terrible mistakes further up the pitch. The thing about you said about Postecoglou, I agree. It's like he's not aesthetically pleasing, Postecoglou. When you look at him, you don't think tactician. When you look at someone like Emery looks like Dracula but looks like he's got like an evil mastermind. He looks like a tactician. You look at Pep Guardiola with his turtleneck, tactician. And then you look at like Arteta even, and he looks the part again. He just looks like a tactician. Yeah. And Postecoglou looks like your long lost uncle that turns up every family barbecue. Do you know
Yeah,
what I
who
mean?
looks like he's standing over the bar at the pub, just like he's probably had like one too many, and the tie is like a little bit undone, and
Yeah.
it's like
And the fact that he's Australian, there's never been an Australian manager. No one wants to be like, this like master tactician coming in to the Premier League from Australia. Like it all is just quite like not it's unique and it's unseen. And I think a lot of people would look at Postecoglou and be like, he just wants to play football. It's quite like patronising in a way, because you've seen so many games this season. There's so many examples where he has tweaked things, or mid game he's reacted. And we've come out the better team, and we've won the games from those decisions. So, I mean, he was completely outclassed by Eddie Howe, and who's the
fucking Jason Tindall. I fucking hate that bloke.
He's so annoying.
Oh my god, he's just got a face that you just want to fucking
loves himself. Bang. But I mean, he got outdone by them, and we got to sort of just take it on the chin and just move on and just be like, look, we St James's Park. Let's not come back there for another year, and hopefully we're stronger next year. We will be stronger next year. But I mean, what they say, this is going to be some absolute Paul Merson punditry here, but what they say in the Premier League is, if you're 10% off it, 1% off it even, you're going to get done. And that's what Spurs were. We were 1% off it at a hostile ground. St James's Park, they were absolutely... like they were so rolled up that it was clear, because of that sort of, they want to be in our position. They're annoyed that we're in the position they're not. And so they had a point to prove. We rocked up, I think, seeing their back line, seeing Jacob Murphy at right back, Kraft at centre back, and then Dan Burn and Shaw, thinking, hello, like, fucking sweet, like, easy day at the office. Timo Werner's going to have Jacob Murphy on toes. Madison's going to pick up, going to get in the little pockets, and then you're going to get Johnson burn for pace, and then Son just having a field day. No, they were so well set up, and they really made it really tough for us, and they were so physical. And I've said this before, and it's a worry. This Tottenham team isn't physical enough. And I said, and I agree with you what you said, but I tweeted it out after the game, of the sort of when I posted on Darren and Doan's Twitter account, like, what are your 3 takeaways? We got some really good replies to that. So thanks for getting involved. But my 3 takeaways, one of them was, we need some focus on our recruitment on big players, because we're too slight. And it goes with for the set piece goal. I mean, come on. I'm not being funny. I don't want to name names, but I'm gonna. I mean, I'm gonna name these 2 in this specific moment. But Shaw jumps. Doggy and Kulusevski don't even leave the ground. There's 2 players and 1 Newcastle player, and they don't even attempt to jump. They're moving about. They look lost. And they're not even jumping in the air. Shaw, he looks unmarked. There's 2 players around him, and they're 6 foot plus. Come on, just jump in the air. You probably get a little head to it. I know I'm 5'7", prepubescent, short, fat, and sitting in my chair watching the game.
Yeah,
but
why don't you go and defend the corner, Will?
Exactly. Oh my god, yeah. Fabian Schär would absolutely dominate me, but I was just like, come on now. And I actually am thinking as well, I don't want to be too reactionary, but I am thinking, I think we do need a set-piece coach, an elite set-piece coach. 100%, because that's how you win those. Next year, I mean, you're looking at Arsenal's and City, they're the games where when you're not on your best game, you win them through those little moments like the set pieces, etc.
Which is what Arsenal have done for a lot of this part of the season. They've been incredibly fluid going forward, and one of their biggest assets has been their volume of chance creation. And their ability to suffocate teams. But a lot of the time, the difference for Arsenal is set pieces. And I said this after the West Ham game. In a marginal game like that, where it's 1-1, one set piece can make the difference. If you're struggling to break a team down, you've always got that in your back pocket, because the way that Tottenham play, there's been this whole debate of, have Tottenham been figured out? And every team gets figured out by some manager at some point in the season. That's why it's the most competitive league in the world. But again, it comes back to this narrative around Ange, around the naivety around his tactics. And it's just one of those stupid buzzwords that people love to throw out about, we've been figured out now. What's the point? Oh, should we just give up, shall we? Should we just give up? I think what I think is going to happen is Ange's going to play exactly the same way next season, and we're just going to get where we're not going to get anywhere. But in those games where you are struggling to break down low blocks, which is a very hard thing to do, and that shows the difference between an elite team like a Manchester City and a Tottenham, And we're not the only ones, by the way. Look at Chelsea. I know. Well, as I say, the Chelsea are 3-0 up against Everton, and Cole Palmer scored a hat trick in 29 minutes. But I mean, I say Everton as a low block. They cannot defend for toffee, ironically. But they, again, despite their good defensive record, but they seem to have been pulled all over the place by Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Anyway, I can't remember what I was saying. Oh, set pieces. Yeah, it can make the difference here one way or another, because against West Ham, we don't concede that goal, despite a couple of chances that they had, which were gifted really to them by us, again, by that Van de Ven sort of slip and that mad kind of 5 minutes at the end where the game became incredibly open. We don't let that set piece goal in. Hopefully we don't concede another set piece and we win that game 1-0. But on the other hand, if the attacking set pieces improve as well, because every time, and this is kind of a reflection on both the attacking and defensive set pieces, Newcastle had 13 corners in that game. I think they won the first header from every single one. Every time we got a corner, and this has been a pattern over the last few games, we do not look like scoring. We do not look like scoring at all, or creating a chance.
We don't even look confident in the players.
No, it's just... And the thing is, what people need to realise as well is that the actual percentage of scoring goals from corners is quite small, which is why people should never get annoyed about people going short and stuff like that, because it's all about trying to create angles and manipulate the pitch and all that. But it is such a that's the 10%. That's the difference between like the elite teams and the good teams. Tottenham are a good team, but we're not that yet. And if we want to be that, that's the first thing that's got to improve, because it's the fucking basics of football in terms of defensive set pieces.
The basics of football. It's the basics of football.
No, I'm turning into Allardyce. No tippy-tappy, shitty inverted fullback nonsense. Yeah.
None of the fancy
set
shit.
Pieces better. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going, and just turning me gammon. No, I love him, and but that's got to stop. That has got to stop, because
100%.
You're looking at Arsenal. I know Arsenal lost yesterday and didn't actually look that threatening. There was a couple that you just think, oh my God. There was a couple of set pieces where, even if they don't look like scoring, you can see they're trying things all the time. They're always trying things from set pieces. And it's all targeted on the goalkeeper a lot of the time. And the movement and that is excellent from Arsenal. And you're looking at that game in a couple of weeks' time and you just think, fuck you now. Gabriel, Saliba, it's a problem. It's a real problem. Yeah, I'm thinking that right now, and I'm shitting my pants.
It makes me want to punch the wall or something, because I'm thinking if
the pure mention of his name gets me
not. No, but I'm just thinking about we're gonna look at Brennan Johnson or Porro, hopefully he's fit, just marking Saliba or Declan Rice at me or something like that. Because Brennan Johnson was on fucking Dan Burn in the game, and I was thinking, what are we doing?
Half, doing my head in.
It's just riding me up thinking about it. And if Arsenal beat us through set pieces, I'm gonna it's gonna grind my gears. And I know you can imagine the reaction after that game if we start losing through set pieces, because it's been a recurring theme, and we haven't looked like we've done anything about it. But in the Newcastle game, I know it's a cliche, but they just wanted it more, didn't they? They were just more physically dominant. And this is a much weakened Newcastle side, as everyone knows, and much more physically dominant. And the goals were ironically goals that you'd normally think Spurs would be comfortable dealing with. Just long balls over the top. Even Porro set him up with a long ball over the top.
Oh, don't even go there.
Annoying, wasn't it? I genuinely, I was watching it on the. I was on a coach to Sheffield for a bit of context, and I was watching it on my laptop, and I was just like, "Oh my God!" We're 1-0 down. That was Van de Ven was just done, and then. It must be the same for everyone else. It just cut and they'd scored again, and you were thinking, hang on, what? Who the fuck? How the fuck did they even get 1-on-1 with Gordon there? And Van de Ven was on the floor again. I thought it was a replay, and then they're wheeling away 2-0 up, and I'm thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, what happened? Porro just set him up with a blind pass. It was sloppy, and that was again just showing we weren't at 100%. And those things happen when you're not at 100%, and it's contagious, and it happens for the whole team. When a couple of players aren't on it, it does become contagious. And again, I love Porro. It's been one of our most consistent performances of the season. It was just he was a microcosm. That mistake was a microcosm of the sort of the whole day, basically, and our whole team's performance. And and then got done on a long ball, Gimirash for the first goal, and the third as well, another just long ball. Or was it Gimirash maybe the third goal, he put the long ball over. I can't remember.
I think so. I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, just it was very, very rookie stuff, and it's a game to just move past. Don't dwell on it. We got a 2-week break. Just don't dwell on that. And yeah, it's just want to put behind us because it was just fucking embarrassing.
Yeah.
Is the fact that Van der Ven that he got so much shit on Twitter, is that actually weirdly a positive sign of like how the club how clubs fear us at the moment? Because when elite players make mistakes, it does make headlines, and you see all the memes about it. Like you think of Van Dijk's slip against Spurs against like Perisic, and that become like a proper meme. Virgil Van Maguire and like all that stuff. And then
Van Dijk at the weekend as well. Yes, literally yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. And when it makes headlines because you're not expecting someone so good to make mistakes. And obviously Van Ven's in his first season, and he's been pretty much spotless until yesterday.
Yeah,
is that kind of a good sign that teams are starting to fear some of our players? And what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Probably, if it was Romero, it probably wouldn't have had the same reaction because people have already made their minds up about Romero. It would just for them just almost be that confirmation bias that he's shit and he can't defend and all that. But you're right, and again, I don't want to give too. I feel like I've given a bit too much praise to Arsenal on this podcast, despite just ripping into them for the first 10 minutes. But it's exactly the same with Saliba and Gabriel, who have been arguably the best centre back partnership in the league. But when Harry Kane turns up to the Emirates and makes them look silly, and of course there's an element from a Spurs fan's point of view looking at that because it's Harry Kane and wow, hasn't he pulled them all over the place and they finally come up against a decent striker and all that, which is all true, by the way. But, you know, there is that thing with Arsenal as well. They want to jump, but it's partly because they've bigged them up so much. But rightly so, they're two very good centre-backs and a very good partnership. But it's the same thing with them. People will jump on it straight away, and that's what happened with Van der Ven. And partly down to the fact that there is that incredibly comical screenshot of Van der Ven with his head. Yeah, literally, just like bang, just like on GTA, wasted. Van der Ven just head on the floor doing breakdancing. It was ugly. Like, it was really ugly for him, which doesn't help. But it's the same as Van Dijk. That's such a good example, the Perisic one where he done him. And Van der Beek, that'd be a good centre, wouldn't it? Van Dijk's doing like the splits, and it's just like it just looks funny. But yeah, I feel for Mickey because if you're gonna have a bad game, do it like that. Do you know what I mean? Go out in style, which is exactly what he did. If it's a classic, it sums us up though, doesn't it? If you're going to implode, no one does it quite like us. So
when it rains, it pours. Yeah,
exactly. But he had a shocker. I actually thought for most of the game, like for parts in the game, he defended quite well, but he just had those moments. But again, he was put under.
He was for both goals.
Yeah, put under immense pressure. The third goal, he couldn't do anything in terms of catching up to Isak. Again, it's just down to us giving the ball away. A doggy, probably should be stronger for the first one. I think even a doggy's a little bit unlucky, I think, with that one. Like, people he's too weak there. I'm not sure about that. I think Gordon is incredibly tenacious. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Maybe you should have done if you're being harsh. It wasn't a foul like he was kind of complaining after.
He did look like he wanted the foul. And
you've got to be stronger there. But, Van left incredibly exposed for the first two goals. Like that Porro, what was he thinking? What was he thinking? Like you said, obviously, I was at the game, so I didn't see it on telly, but a lot of people said, like you said, that they cut to the thing and Gordon was in on goal, and it's like, what the fuck has happened?
How did that happen? Yeah, like 30
I don't know what he was trying to do because you're 1-0 down, you've just gone 1-0 down, and like you said, Newcastle, St James's Park is a ground that can kind of swallow you up, and you just got to make a better decision than that.
I think
it was aimless. And then all of a sudden, Romero and Van der Ven are just like, cheer, you've just thrown them a bomb. Do you know what I mean? That's literally what you've done. The bomb is about to detonate and you've just chucked it to them. And that's exactly what he did with that hospital pass. And it wasn't his best day.
It was. It's funny you say that because it genuinely reminded me of, like, when you just play Sunday League at like under 10s and like the kids aren't comfortable enough to grab hold of the ball and be on the ball. When they get the ball, they just boot it. They don't want it. It was like that. That's like I would do.
Oh, now. God.
Yeah. Be like, fuck, pass me the ball. Like, quick, have it back. And it was like, because we said it before the game in the preview. We were saying Newcastle can get so hostile, so we need to do our best to sort of just frustrate them, and we didn't, and then they were that 12th man and really spurred them on. And Yeah, and it was contagious. It got to the players, and that's a perfect example. Porro just completely throwing Van der Ven under the bus, just booting the ball, perfect little over the top through ball for Anthony Gordon, and yeah, and another thing. I mean, I'm not. I just remembered thinking it during the match, and I don't know specifically how they did it, but they kept dragging Van der Ven somehow, pulling Van der Ven over to the right hand side in his positioning, and he did look uncomfortable there, obviously, because he don't play on the right hand side. But he did find himself a lot defending or recovering over on that right hand side. I don't know whether they were doing maybe runs from in behind Romero or something like that. I need to check it. I just thought of it now, so I would have done a bit more research on that before this.
No,
but
I
he
get what you
was
mean,
finding
though,
himself on the right a lot, and you're thinking, hang on, why is he on the right hand side again?
Yeah.
And like, where's Romero? But he was being dragged into places elsewhere. So it must have been movement from Newcastle, because that doesn't happen normally. Van der Ven is quite. Romero normally has that down to a T, that position covered. But yeah, again, just another bad day at the office. Good thing about Van der Ven is that he's got such a good head on his shoulders, and I don't think this will affect him. He's so mature for a 22-year-old, and he looks like a future captain. He's a leader himself. So
exactly.
I feel like,
and you saw how good he was against Arsenal as well in the reverse fixture. Obviously, the North London derby's up next. He was incredible in that first North London derby.
Yeah.
He had a little bit of a shaky start in the first 10, 15 minutes. So did the doggy. And the way they kind of got through that game kind of gives you hope that, like you said, he has got an amazing head on his shoulders, and he'll be fine. He'll be absolutely fine. And yeah, it was just one of them.
Yeah.
Just one of them.
Yeah. Obviously, Aston Villa smashing Arsenal, which is great to see, but it's making Europa League look suddenly look slightly more likely at the moment, I'd say.
Yeah.
Would Europa League be a failure?
No, not for me. I think there's been a very interesting discourse on this around on Spurs social media today about this. I made a video on it myself talking about it, and I think that there's a difference between wanting the Champions League and being happy with Europa as the kind of the fallback option almost, if you like. But fans wanting the Europa League, I don't see that. I don't see that you should aim for the Europa League, because you're not aiming as high as you can. But there's nothing wrong with, if we don't get in the Champions League, being happy with European football in some way, whether that is the Europa League or not. The European Conference League will be another story, because that implies a further fall off from where we were. And people would like to throw it at Tottenham that we were top for part of the season, and then it's like, now you're settling for Europa League football. And Europa League football would be an incredible sign of progression from where we were last season, not even qualifying for Europe at all. Potentially qualifying for the Conference League on the final day of the season. We've come a hell of a long way in the last sort of 12 months, and to finish fifth, no Spurs fan should turn their noses up at that. There's pros and cons to being in the Europa League. I think one of the issues that sort of people have had in terms of just European football in general is that, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier around the perceived naivety around Ange's tactics, or the lack of sort of training on set pieces, is that, these mini failures in these games are coming when we haven't got a busy fixture schedule, when we're only playing one game a week. And then you think about what's going to happen on the training field when you've got Champions League on the Wednesday and Premier League on the Saturday, or Europa League on the Thursday and Premier League at the weekend. But again, these are things that can all be ironed out over time. And one thing I think as well is, as much as I think the Europa League is a great thing for Spurs, people are judging. I've seen a lot of people saying today that we would get eaten alive in the Champions League next season. Again, sort of referring back to Ange and his tactics and all those kind of things, and saying this group of players isn't good enough right now to be in the Champions League. You're never ready. You're never ready for the Champions League. No, unless you're Man City, unless you finish first or second or maybe third, like, no one's ready for it. No, it can be so unpredictable. Look at Man City. The first few years they got into the Champions League after winning the Premier League, they didn't get out of the group. And now they've gone on to win it sort of 10 years down the line, and could potentially be heading to another final this year. So the Champions League is you never know. You never know what's going to happen. But you're judging Spurs' inability to be ready for the Champions League off the back of what you've seen over the last few weeks, and what you're judging Tottenham on what they are now. And we're in April here. If Spurs were in the Champions League, the first game would be in September, off the back of hopefully an ambitious transfer window. And again, people look at ambition in all different ways. But if we have a transfer window like we did last year, we should be excited. Yes, I think, like we talked about earlier in the podcast, about improving on the physical profiles of certain players across the pitch, which then again elevates you in terms of being in the Champions League as well. Having players that are physically capable of, like whether it's a striker, for example, whether it's someone like an Ivan Toney or a Dominic Solanke, someone who you can trust with the ball with his back to goal, or whether it's more of that dominator, that destroyer, number 6 profile, whether that's Amadou Onana or someone else. So you can't judge Tottenham's performance in the Champions League that will begin or could potentially begin in 5 or 6 months' time on the Tottenham that you're seeing getting battered by Newcastle. You can't do that. That's not fair. It's not fair on the manager, and it's not fair on the group of players. You just have to trust them, and we should be excited about it. One of the things under Ange Postecoglou is that for periods in games or periods of the season, we develop this fearlessness. We've gone and clawed games back at the Etihad. We've beaten Liverpool at home. We've gone and drawn at Arsenal, put in a really good performance. We've got Arsenal in a couple of weeks' time. Yes, we folded against Newcastle, but we went and beat Aston Villa 4-0 a few weeks ago. And yes, there's been a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde nature to the season over the last sort of 4 or 5 months. But again, that consistency comes with time, and that's why we shouldn't be scared about embracing the challenges of the Champions League if we were to get there. But that by no means makes Europa League football a failure. That categorically cannot be a failure. And I think in terms of the pros for that, we've got a very exciting young group of players coming through the academy at the moment with the likes of Jamie Donnelly, Will Lancashire, Dane Scarlett, Iago Santiago, Alfie Dorrington, Ashley Phillips, although he's not an academy product, he's a young player at Spurs, outlined at Plymouth, who will want to get more game time next season. That allows them to bed in a little bit more. It's sort of a less harsh environment. But again, Spurs' Europa League record over the last few years, or the last few times we've been in it, isn't that great. And then that kind of creates another debate around the fact that it's all well and good saying that around giving the kids a chance in the Europa League. But managers in the past have been lambasted for not taking the competition seriously enough. So there's that sort of gamble that you've got to, or there's the balance that you've kind of got to find around being competitive, but also giving players opportunities that are very much deserving of it. But yeah, and also it's a chance for Tottenham to win a trophy.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
But so is the Champions League. And that's not, I don't think we're going to win the Champions League. I don't think we'd win the Europa League if we got into it next year, because we wouldn't be the favourites. We'd be up there for sure. But, you can't just go into it assuming you're going to win that. We're Tottenham. We haven't won a trophy since 2008. But it represents a good chance. And I think the attitude has got to change a little bit in the sense that, yes, we should be aiming for the Champions League. That's what we all want. We all want to play in the European elite competition next year. But we shouldn't turn our noses up at a 5th place finish after the context of the last year and what Ange has kind of done. And you can forget about, being in the top 4 or being top of the league at the start of the season and falling away from that. It's, people are all up for a rebuild until it gets a little bit tough, and things haven't got tough yet. They've not got tough under Postecoglou. These bumps in the road were kind of expected. So for people then to start throwing things out about, failures and stuff like that I find very interesting. But yeah, I don't know how you feel about it, but my overall consensus is aim as high as you can and then see where you finish and then go from there. I think that's very much my attitude to all of this. If we're in the Champions League, I'm ecstatic. If I'm in the Europa League, I'm really excited about what we can do in that competition.
Yeah, exactly. I think I feel like this season's a bit of a write-off anyways. Like you said, with the context of last summer, no one thought we'd be here. No one thought we'd be in the conversation for top 4, let alone Europa League. And the Europa League isn't even. I think there's a common misconception about the Europa League, because you're thinking about when we were last in it, it wasn't that strong of a competition. It's so strong now. There are some European giants.
Look at the quarterfinals.
Colossal clubs. Yeah, it's amazing. And over the last couple of years, I've been hooked on the Europa League. Like, I'll never catch myself watch Europa League if Spurs weren't in it, unless I heard that Arsenal were losing in Europa League, and I was like, oh, go on, I'll turn that on. But it's an amazing competition, and it shouldn't be scoffed at. It should not be scoffed at. And I know to counteract what you were saying, I think a lot of a large segment of the fan base would sort of think, if we're not happy with Champions League, that's a lack of ambition from a fan base. Well, no, I don't think so, because like you said, it's a chance to win a trophy. We shouldn't scoff at any competition that is another chance to win a trophy for Spurs, because we're starving for that trophy. And Postecoglou said himself, every competition he's in, he wants to win. He wants to win it. And I agree with you. I mean, I don't think we win the Champions League if we're in it next season. No one expects us in season 2 of. Can we? But like, no one expects us in season 2 to win the fucking Champions League. Do you know what I mean? That's ridiculous. Yeah. And that is delusional. I do think. And then some people say, "Hang on, there's a lack of ambition there." Come on now, get a reality check. This is a 4-year plan. Imagine we rock up Champions League next year, win it. I mean, it's not going to happen. But obviously, you can't sort of write us off. And if we do go in the Champions League, you expect us to go all out in it. But Europa League is a much more realistic target and a healthier sort of trajectory process, isn't it? If we get to Europa League, absolutely. And then we work our squad, that's another chance to develop our squad, like you were saying. We've had a massive problem in the last 3-4 years with developing our youth players. A lot of youth players have a lot of promise and they don't make it because we don't have the chances to sort of integrate them in the team. And the Europa League's perfect. Imagine Lucas Bergvall in the Europa League. People would be raving about him because he that's the sort of scene that you can see him in and thriving in Europe, but not just yet. He's still so young, but it gives those types of players, the opportunity to thrive in it. It's still a very sort of attractive competition for players, new signings. And like Ange said, he doesn't want to sign a player if you just want Champions League, because that's not ambitious, because that's putting a ceiling on what we're going to do as a club. If you think, hang on, I'm going to sign for them because they're in Champions League, we want to be winning trophies eventually. So it come to us to win the league, not just to play in the Champions League. That's a lack of ambition in itself. And another positive is that players are going to have a chance to get a bit of a break because we can rotate the squad. Because you've seen, even in one, apart from the FA Cup and the League Cup, we didn't really have longevity in those competitions. But in this one season, you can see players are tiring. And that's from one game a week. Like, Son needs a break, I think. Son looks shattered. I know he's had the Asian Cup in between, which is very heavy on him. But he does look tired, and that sort of correlates to the same amount of time he'd probably be playing Champions League football, if not a less amount of game time, him going off in the Asian Cup mid-season. So it will give, if we do get like an Ivan Toney in, you can just rotate and you can have fresh legs and it's I just think it's not all doom and gloom. It's actually a positive sign if we get Europa League. If we get Champions League, amazing, absolutely amazing, because we never thought we'd be in this situation. But I just think Europa League will come for that trophy if we're in it next year. Like, I really think we go far in it, and I think we'd take it seriously as a club, and we'd see it as a fantastic opportunity to develop this process and move along up the trajectory, because this club's going places. Like, I know performances like Newcastle make us forget that we are going places, and this process has turned around so significantly in the last 6 months. We thought it would take so much longer to be where we are right now. People were saying they'd happily be 6th place and play good football. We've surpassed that. I think there is a feeling. There was a feeling that after the first 10 games, because we were so good, we set the standard so high that people were thinking, we got to finish Champions League. You got to change your hopes and around how you were actually performing. But I mean, things happened. Like, we got so many injuries mid-season. We had to deal with that. The players have come back and they haven't been at the same form levels, which is expected because they've had injuries. And there have been dips in form for players and for the team. And there have been performances, like you said, that we all expected tough times. We all expected moments like this. And I know expectations do change. But again, this season is kind of a write-off. And Europa League would be fantastic.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Moving on to the Q&A, and thank you so much, everyone. The questions were outstanding again, and it was amazing. We only got time for a few today, but thank you. Keep getting them in every time, because it's amazing. Thank you. Jack Enikau on Twitter says, do we need to adopt City/Arsenal's approach of using at least one ball-playing centre-back and full-back for defensive solidarity? Gvardiol, White sort of idea, and would Romero be an option for it if Porro is injured? Let Dragoson go centre-back. What's your thoughts on that? Because personally, for me, I I think there's a worry in the back of my head that we haven't got that tactical flexibility. I know we've been talking about Postecoglou and how brilliant he is, and that there is this misconception of him being tactically flexible and adaptable. There is a worry for me that, we got done at Newcastle, and because we were kind of naive, we were very open. But if you look at the Cities and the Arsenals, they have a plan A, and they're like Ange and Spurs. It is do plan A the best of your ability. But they are very flexible game to game with their sort of tactical tweaks. And I do think that a defensive fullback, or not defensive fullback, but like a ball playing centre back, playing fullback would benefit us. I know we'd lose maybe a little bit, maybe like a factor up front, further up the pitch. But Vardy can attack, Ben White can attack. It doesn't mean they're going to hold back. It's just that bit more solidarity, and it does work. And my worry is that we may not win the league with Ange if we are so open at the back, because defence wins you titles. You've seen Arsenal, I know they look like they're bottling it again, but their whole sort of focus on this season is being more defensively sound. And I just think the thing about Ange is that I think he'll know this better than anyone, but I do think he's happy to win 5-3. We'll score more if you hit us for free. We'll score 4 or 5 or 6. And I think that's his sort of like mindset. But that does worry me, because if we have an off day and we're open at the back, we'll get done, and we are susceptible to conceding a lot of chances. We're linked with what's his name? Is it Calafiori or from is it Bologna? And we're linked with Simicon. Well. Yeah, Simicon. And they're the profiles that Jack's talking about, which is positive, and that does fill you with a bit of hope that maybe that it's just a different. You know how we have so many different options up front, different players that add different things to the attack. That's what we need in defence, I think. I really do think that, because then we can make those tweaks, and just nullify their attacking prowess, the opposition's attacking prowess in those big games. What do you think? Sorry, I've rambled on a bit.
No, I agree. I think it comes down to tactics as well, doesn't it? That's the most important thing in all this, because Pep Guardiola, who kind of invented this thing of almost playing the 4 centre-backs across the back four, I say invented, but certainly brought it back into the sort of modern game in the Premier League, which then Arteta has sort of adopted as well, with Kivior and Ben White playing as fullbacks for a lot of it. I think it's a massive tactical tweak, but it's also it's not just having physical profiles. It's still about having players that are very, 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 very good on the ball.
Yeah.
I think that's why a Doggy is excellent, because he gives you the flexibility to almost have both of that. Like, he is incredibly physical. Yes, we saw him go down maybe a little bit too easily for the first goal, but I think a Doggy is absolutely fine on that side. I think it's more about the right-hand side, like you say sometimes, about maybe having someone like Romero who can play there. And if you sign another top centre-back in the summer, having that flexibility to sort of play Romero in that inverted role, because he's great on the ball, but also he gives you so much defensive solidarity as well with his reading of the game, which is why Stones is excellent, which is why Ben White is excellent at it. So I think it's a really interesting point. Like you said, attack wins your games, defences win your titles, and Spurs do need to shore up if that's what the ambition is going to be, because it's not sustainable. Look at Liverpool at the moment, massively struggling in terms of their defence. I know they only got beat 1-0 yesterday, but they're giving away chances for fun. And then when you can't convert your chances, like they weren't able to on Sunday against Crystal Palace, that's gonna leave you in. That's gonna give you big problems, and it just shows that it's not really sustainable. And that's for an amazing team such as Liverpool and an amazing manager in Klopp. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting kind of point to explore. I think that's why Simicon is actually a very good option for Spurs, because it gives you, again, it's someone who can play at centre back, it's someone who can play at right back. He's obviously very defensively sound, good going forward, good on the ball. Yeah, it's an interesting shout. I like it.
Yeah, it just gives us that different something. Do you know what I mean? Where we come up against the tops. Newcastle absolutely done us with a poor team, but that front three was lethal. If we had that little bit extra defensive sort of structure, or we weren't completely open, maybe we'd come out with a better result. I don't know. I'm not like digging up. Ange, this game, Ange can be criticised, but I think it was an off day from the players. He can be criticised, yeah. But I think the players were to blame for the most part. But
for sure.
But those little tweaks in games like this, maybe just to shore up the back and not let us look so vulnerable. Because as soon as there's a mistake or we feel vulnerable, it is contagious, and we start playing with a little bit less. We start playing with a bit more pressure. I think it's just that bit more calmness, that composure would sort of do us well in those big games. And yeah, like you said, defense wins you titles. So I can't see us being sustainable, but I think our plan A will be incredible next year. I've talked about this before with the likes of a tricky winger, a big striker, big presence in the box that can score a handful of goals and grab a game by storm. Because that's another thing we're missing against Newcastle. Someone that grabbed that game by the scruff of the neck and pulled us through. And I feel like a big, heavy striker, not heavy, I'm not talking about...
Gary Goals from Sunday League.
It has the unbelievable first touch, but just burns out after 2 minutes.
Pie in hand and fagging the other one. Immaculate first touch.
But yeah, I'm talking about the Ivan Tonys, those types of players that win games for Brentford, so they can win games for Spurs. Do you know what I mean? If we're having a poor performance, and just that plan A of having a tricky winger, and I can see us being unstoppable in attack next year. I can.
Yeah.
It's just we need to shore up the back because teams can hit us and they'll know how to hit us. They'll know how to find our vulnerabilities, and in big games we'll be found out. And if we want to challenge for titles, I think we do need to be a little bit more flexible in defence, and we talked about number 6 as well, crying out for that sort of that destroyer, breaking up counter attacks. We talked about that a lot, so we won't go into that today. But yeah, I do agree. So would you play Romero right back whilst Porro's out?
I'm not sure. It's tricky that, because I think bringing Dragoos in against Arsenal is a tough task. Maybe not. I don't think. I think I'd go with Emerson Royale and Romero. We still don't know about Porro's injury. He might well be fit for the game, but it didn't look great. It looked like a hamstring, didn't it? Again, I didn't have my binoculars out at St James's Park to see what it actually did. But yeah, no, it's an interesting thought. It was something that we spoke about, obviously, when Van der Ven, when Porro was injured. When we sort of actually first started the pod, that Palace game, and obviously Emerson played in that one. And we talked about Romero potentially inverting on the right-hand side and Dragosin playing. So it's something I think could work, but I think against Arsenal, I think you're just better off going with Emerson, someone you can rely on defensively.
Yeah.
And I think I would probably take the safe option in that game.
Yeah, I agree. If it was another game, maybe I'd be tempted, but I just think you're losing one of the world's best centre-backs if you take him out and put him on the right. And also, he definitely could play at right-back, but that'd be a first game for him playing in an inverted right-back role. And I just think that's a lot to ask on him in a game of this magnitude as well. So I just think, play it safe. I agree with you. Yeah, play it safe. But an amazing question, because I have been thinking about that recently. And when you do look at, and again, it's not saying we're going to be go all out defence. No, because you look at Gvardiol, how many fucking bangers he scored in the last week?
Yeah, I know.
Do you know what I mean? And
that's what it's about. It's about having good. The most important thing, still with the physicality, is good technical quality in those positions, which is why I'm never worried about a doggy. I think it's more just maybe on the other side is where you maybe need to beef it up with an alternative option.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not taken away from Porro, because he's fantastic. He's been one of the most consistent players in the team this season. And he's a fan favourite. Like, the passion he shows, he knows what it means to play for Spurs. Absolutely adore Pedro Porro. I just think for some games, certain games, that sort of tweak should be made just to shore us up.
I agree,
but it'll be interesting to see how we sort of go about it in the summer, how we go about that, because we are linked with players of that calibre and that profile. Holly Hotspurs on Instagram says, "Where's Ollie Skip gone? What the fuck has happened to Ollie Skip?
Know.
He's been kidnapped."
I don't know. I'm trying to remember the last time he played for us. I just generally cannot remember. Where has he gone?
I feel bad for him because I can't actually see him leaving either. Like, I think he'd want to leave. I think he'd want to get game time. But we're in a bit of a conundrum with homegrown and club trained players. So I feel like we're going to have to sort of keep him against his will, lock him up, and keep him in the reserves. And I feel so bad for him because he's got so much potential. That season under Nuno and Conte, he was exceptional, and then he got injured, and then he just hasn't got back to that level, and he's just fell off. I feel bad.
Everton away was the last time he featured for us, 4 minutes, and he started the Brentford game the week before. and came off at half time. Yeah, it feels like it's been ages since we saw him.
He had a decent game against United. He held his own against United. I mean, I'm just thinking of that Hollywood pass he played out to the left wing.
Oh yeah.
But he was fine against United. I mean United midfield battle is easy. Like I reckon me and you could be deployed in the number 8 and boss Casemiro. But like,
did you see what Jamie Redknapp said about him?
Yeah, Soccer Aid.
Soccer Aid, yeah.
It's true, yeah, but. He did have a good game, and that was a big game, and we needed to rely on him, and he did the job. So I do feel bad for Ollie Skip because I don't know what we're gonna do. Like I genuinely don't know unless we buy like Carl Walker-Peters, or someone home trained, Marcus Edwards or Nabil Bentaleb's doing all right. I've seen on someone on
Did
Twitter.
you see that? I know. I was going to say,
data looks all right as well.
This is the answer for our number 6. I was like, fuck yeah, now.
But
surely not.
That's when you're like, fuck data. I don't care.
I'm not a stats man anymore.
Stats is for mugs now. I agree with that saying, just from that one data analysis alone.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to him. I have no idea because he's not making a bench, and we're going to only improve on that bench. And I just feel so bad. He's just going further and further down the pecking order. Yeah, unless we sell Højbjerg and Lo Celso, maybe bring in one more player. I don't know. Another player, I will save that for another pod, but another player I feel sorry for is Lo Celso. Because, I mean, there's rumours that he might be unhappy. I don't know how far that's, like, true, like, the extent of that. But
the thing is, has he got enough credit in the bank, really, with Spurs to be that unhappy about his situation? I don't think so.
Mate, if Maddison did drop out, he'd play an absolute belter of a game and then do his calf or something. And then we won't see him for another month. And then he'll appear again, look unreal. And the fans will be like, play Lo Celso.
Yeah.
Mate, every time we try, he does right. And then he just fucking gets injured, and then he's back for the Argentina game. So,
I know.
I think he's one that's probably going to be on the move anyways this summer. Which, I mean, he's done himself a good service this season. If this is his last season, we're leaving on a positive because and I love the fact that he had a go at like Guimaraes. He's had a bit of bite to him this season. He's been winding up, João Pedro, winding up Haaland, like rattled Haaland. It's amazing to see.
The Haaland one was incredible.
It was. So but I just think he's looking like he's maybe heading out the door. But we could maybe talk about this on another podcast. And then finally, George Trewin on Twitter. This is sort of leads into my sort of last question. Are players like Maddison fortunate that there's a break before Arsenal? Otherwise, he might have missed out if it were this weekend. And we could talk about Maddison another day because he has been poor. But I just feel like everyone was poor on the weekend. Like I don't think we can even single out the players. I think the whole team was just not up for it at all. But my question to you is, are you feeling better about that 2-week break going into the Arsenal game now, or is it still not sitting right with you?
I really don't know. I don't know. Is this
top tier analysis?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Ben Bowman, there and doing pod.
Yeah, thanks for listening to there and doing.
Yeah, cheers. Have a good day, everyone. Have a good week. Got the Spurs. I don't. Yes and no, because it's like it's 2 weeks to stew on it, but then it's like if it was this weekend, I'd be like, fucking can't be arsed.
Fucking hell.
It cannot be arsed. Whereas like, you never know. They could go and lose again at the weekend and lose again against Bayern Munich, and then you're feeling right. They're vulnerable. Let's go and get them.
Yeah.
I think probably it might do us a little bit good.
Especially
so a little bit of a reset. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hopefully give him the chance to come back against Arsenal because again, like his kind of commitment in those games is going to be important. He had a good game at the Emirates as well. So yeah, man. Yeah. I think probably am feeling a bit better about that.
Yeah. It's just, why do we always fucking lose on these like big breaks? Like we go into these like 2-week breaks, and it's just like you feel lethargic until the next game. Like you're not really looking forward to seeing them again. And it's just the fact that it's Arsenal, the game of that magnitude. Obviously, they are still in the title race. It is like squeaky bum time for the next 14 days, and it's like you're dreading it. You're dreading it because you're thinking, fuck, like if we could get done here, but there's that chance. We're at home. Make it hostile. We can be that final dagger to the hearts of the scum, and make sure they're out of it well and truly. But yeah, it is. I think it's one of those. Just like it is what it is. There's not much difference between 2 weeks now on a loss, and I'd feel worse if we smashed Newcastle and then had 2 weeks because you can't really take that momentum fresh into the game. But yeah, it's one of those. It's like it doesn't really make a difference because we lost, and yeah, I don't know. Perfect. I think that's all it. I think that's good. Cheers, mate. And where can we find you? Where can we find Darren and Doing?
Darren and Doing, mate. Fucking TikTok, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Amazon hopefully soon as well because someone was asking about that. So we need to figure that out.
Yeah.
And yeah, bloody everywhere, mate. Darren and Doing. Give us a like rating on Spotify. Give us a review on Apple. All that kind of good stuff. Automatic downloads. Get them downloaded. Yeah.
Do it. Yeah.
And me, just TikTok and Twitter, mate, for the most part. Like I said, I keep saying YouTube. I need to sort that out. Hopefully for the summer for the Euros and stuff and maybe some end of season stuff with Spurs.
Yeah.
But yeah, man.
Yeah, there's some big things to come in this 2-week break. We've got some content that's going to be coming for you. And yeah, we did our first TikTok live, which was fun, wasn't it?
We did, yeah, more of them. We might probably do another one this week, yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for the participation in that as well. That was it was quite wholesome actually.
Yeah, that was fun.
Sort of, that community. But I mean, it was mainly your your followers, but I mean, all of Darren and Doing community were in there, and it was really wholesome.
My community is this community
exactly,
as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's one thing I wanted to talk about. We've had a couple of messages about the fact that our category on Spotify is American football. I've tried changing it as much as I can, and on my dashboard it says soccer or football, but every time I do it, it still appears as American football. So there's a bit of like a technical issue, I think. But we've emailed Spotify, so hopefully that should be changed soon.
We're sorting it.
Yeah, exactly. We're on it, and thank you for the messages about that. And another thing, we're almost at 100 followers on Instagram. We're almost at 100 followers on Twitter. So it would be it would be lovely to see us 100%. Reach this 100 whilst we're sort of feeling miserable about the Newcastle games.
Yeah, exactly. And nearly 1,000 on TikTok as well.
Yeah,
and nearly at 150 subs on YouTube. We had a good little week over the last week. And,
oh my God, thank you so much. It was so good. It was amazing.
There?
I know, literally within like a week, it's gone from like 70 to whatever it's on now. Thank you, honestly. Now. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, I mean, the sport's been amazing. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, nice one, everybody.
Loving building this so far. So, yeah, thank you so much. Perfect. See you all soon. And don't let Spurs bring you down. You got a couple-week break.
Exactly. Up Spurs.
Cheers, everyone.